As I was saying, as we go into the fifth, I think it is, part of Kin in Line, I grew up in Bonza Bay, and I'm pretty sure this drawing was done there. Anyway, you can see a little wave in the foreground as it comes towards these rocks, and behind is a big swell. So I loved, as a young person, just being next to the ocean, and when the surf was up and these beautiful waves were coming through, it was something else. I also quite enjoy my technique here. I'm surprised I managed a drawing of this quality so early in my career. Here we get that other side of my drawing personality, and that is just weird and wonderful images coming out of the subconscious. I mean, look at this figure on the right. I've done these numerous times over the last 30, 40 years. And to me, I don't need to turn this into a woodcut or anything else. This is a one-off drawing, and it's unique. No one will produce something like that ever again. Here I must have taken this big drawing book and sketched out on the street somewhere, and it's not a bad drawing. Clearly, I'm still battling with shading and so forth, but at least I was getting out and capturing somebody in life, a woman at a bus stop maybe. Here's another one. This is what it's all about, and I was still learning, but at least I was out there doing it. And even that quick sketch has actually got some great qualities to it. Here we're back doing weird and wonderful things. Obviously, as a young person, mixing with the surfing fraternity, I followed boxing closely. We had a very good boxer in East London called Happy Boy Mkhaji. So as young guys, physiques and so forth were important, and clearly that's, and looking at this is a karate type image, so I think Bruce Lee might have influenced it as well. It's actually drawing the muscles and so forth has helped. I think we did a lot of anatomy. We studied anatomy quite closely. So one had to know, as Jack Lugg always used to tell us, you have to know what's happening under the surface of the skin, how the bones and muscles are working to give you the figure that you're drawing. So look at that six-pack. I mean, that was modeled on me, obviously. Profiles were always going to be interesting for me, I think. And look at the guy on the right here. That's starting to be a good drawing. As I said, going out into the old part of the city. Now, this was North End in East London. And North End became it was a mixed race area. So under the Group Areas Act, I think a lot of people of colour were ousted from here. But back then, in the late 70s, the character was fantastic to draw. And even though I didn't have all the skills, I think I was starting to get the idea of how to do a good drawing. In fact, this is quite an interesting drawing, I think. Sorry, this book is in a bit of a mess. I actually drew a paper aeroplane here. But in itself, this is actually a good exercise. And I wonder if I did this during our object drawing class or if I just did this spontaneously. But, you know, the line is following the form, is creating the form. And although it's not focusing very well, that's what you were going for. Now, this next one shows you the difference between an artist like Jack Lugg and somebody who's learning. So this guy looked like a bit of a tramp, but we drew him in the studio. And I mean, look at that, it's just a shambles. Then I tried to draw him seated, and it's a bit better, but it certainly lacks actual drawing quality. Then Mr. Lugg pops up and says, "Ken, let me show you how it should be done." And a few less than a minute probably, he does that. Now, I could put that on eBay. You know, although it's a bit damaged there, it's a Jack Lugg original, and it's a great drawing. Okay, so I think we're getting to a book here that it seems to be from anyway, I can't remember the exact date. This is quite an interesting one to begin with. He took us out to a farm where they kept old carts from the 19th century, early 20th century, somewhere outside East London. And yeah, so I'm sure I could have done a lot more with this, but it is a record. Right, this is a point where I think I've actually started to learn to draw. This page of drawings for some reason work. And that's because I'm starting to learn how to shade properly. What doesn't work is where you just leave big areas of white. You know, Lugg used to say, if you isolate a section of a drawing, is it telling you anything? And those areas tell you nothing. It's just a flat plane of white. So whereas down the side here, you sort of do get a sense of the form. But I do like the line is definitely becoming more fluid and fluent, and I think Lugg, I mean, that was his style, and I think I certainly wanted to draw a bit like him, even if I would always have my own sort of way of doing it. This one really starts to work, I think. I mean, this is a classic Jack Lugg pose. Get the model to stand their arms out. She would only have stood there for about 3 minutes like that, I think. And although the legs don't have much going for them, I think the torso really works. I mean, she's bending at the hips, and and those lines are starting to reflect that nicely, particularly up the side here. Now this little combination of drawings is actually amazing that I did these. So how cool is that? Young African girl posed, and I made this sort of composite drawing of her in, I don't know, it just works so well, and the drawing isn't at all bad, and I really think that was an inspired moment, and it's one of the few things that you sort of wait for in art. They come to you. I don't even recall doing this. It's just one of those things that happen. And here on the same day was a huge breakthrough in terms of technique. I mean, shading. Suddenly I'm actually drawing, you know. There's definite improvement. Everything's starting to define form. We've got the muscles that are sinews in the neck, you know. The hand is given some attention. Yeah. And then this lot also, in their own way, are me trying to sort of work it out. And that's not a bad drawing. I'm still searching, but using the figure now to create something. And this one, I think, was considered good enough for me to use in an exhibition. So it was at this point that I was kind of considered skilled enough to actually present drawings for an exhibition. And likewise this one. I remember this being exhibited. So what Mr. Lugg did here was have this woman actually marching or walking on the spot. And you had to capture the movement. I think it does. Going to have to sign off now because of constraints of time and space. See you next time.